The Great War, or the War to End All Wars, or another common name for the first conflict in world history to involve literally every nation on Earth to some varying degree, is World War I. You see, between the years of 1914 and 1918, seemingly a small blip in the human timeline, correct? The world was involved in a global conflict which saw a human toll of nearly 40 million casualties. With military inventions such as aerial warfare, mechanized artillery, and even fully automatic weaponry that can now kill multiple men with a single pull of a trigger, the rolling fields of Europe and Africa, many parts of Asia, and well, everywhere, now saw state-sponsored death on a scale that had never been seen before in record history up to that day. But, question. You see, we may all know about the war itself. I don't think you'll need to hear me cover it today. But my question is for you, how did it start? I mean, haven't we all heard that it was because Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot by Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo in July of 1914 that led to the war, correct? Well, fun fact. You see, it was actually a long story in the making that led to all-out global conflict. So, buckle up, my fellow history enthusiasts. Perhaps you should come here, maybe take a whiz, because today I'm talking about the causes of World War I. So in order for us to truly tackle the exact causes of the Great War, most historians try to look to a specific event as sort of the spark that ignited the powder keg. And well, here rolling through history, we're going all the way back to the early 1400s in order to find our spark. Beginning really in the early 1400s, world powers such as England, China, India, France, and others began a global trade network that crisscrossed the entire known world at the time. Now, these weren't single nations like we think of today, in terms of self-governance, political infrastructure, autonomy, and so forth, but rather they were empires. A single state who controlled a vast territory expanding all over the globe. Take the Mughal Empire, for instance. Based in India, one ruling party had colonies throughout much of Asia and parts of Africa. Resources and trading them throughout the known world. Resources that couldn't be found anywhere else, mind you. The same for Great Britain and Spain and others like the Chinese Empire. However, this global trade network relied heavily on navigating around the entirety of Africa in order to reach their intended destination, resulting in months of travel which often carried the threat of diseases, piracy, and well, losing your entire load due to rotting. I mean, have you ever tried keeping bananas for more than a week? Taking a quicker route across the globe, Portugal and other European nations began sending envoys westward in the later part of the century in order to find a quicker route to Asia. What they found, however, was an entirely new continent, fully inhabited and farmed by people in established societies. Realizing this, the global trade network blew up. I mean, Spain set up colonies in Central and South America, making billions in gold and mineral resources, while Britain and France set up shop in North America, establishing colonies throughout what's now the United States, while China and the Mughals continued to expand throughout the Pacific Island areas. To properly secure these trade routes, each empire had to create these trade companies to secure these routes. As a result, many of these empires mostly at the behest of these trade companies, would fight over colonies and the rights to secure the resources in those areas, specifically in Africa and the Far East, where territories swapped hands several times and saw the rise and fall of independent states. As a result, many of these colonies, suffering from the poor governance of the controlling empire, began to turn to self-governing ideals. In fact, by the 17th century, many of the empire's powerhold began to crumble due to these issues. That is, until 1618. Lasting until 1648, a series of uprisings and rebellions throughout Europe known as the 30 Years' War resulted in several empires losing their papate, or king and church dominance, and instead opting for state or territorial governance, having their own political dominance. In other words, empires were beginning to crumble and lose their power, baby. As another result of the collapse of the church's power hold on government, a period known as the Great Enlightenment began to take foot, lasting until the later 1700s. This period saw many political thinkers come up with ideas like life, liberty, and one's own pursuit of self-government. Sound familiar, right? And these ideas became the foundations of future nations' frameworks for their own governments. By the later part of the 1700s, empirical power holds had loosened so much that open rebellions began springing up throughout the world, beginning with the American Revolution in the 1770s and then the French Revolution a mere decade later. Empires, for the most part, began to lose their resource-rich territories to these new nations, or new states. Now, although these new nations, such as the Prussian states, or Austria-Hungary and others, were sovereign, meaning they controlled themselves, they still needed protection from their former empires by trading their resources in exchange for protection from others. Take America, for example. In 1784, we gained our independence from Britain. However, we still need protection from the other powerful empires. So Britain began a trade deal with America in the 1820s that saw an explosion in our cotton production that was then sold to Britain in exchange for an alliance with Britain. Alliances. Wow, what a heck of a word. You see, an alliance forms when a mother empire agrees to defend its offspring state should the need arise, in exchange for access to that state's resources. In the 1800s, we no longer saw such expansive empires ruling the world. What we saw in its place, however, was the birth of many smaller nations or states. Take Africa for an example. Although many nations that gained their independence from their former empires, they still had held a military presence in those areas. South Africa, a colony set up by the Dutch, known as the Orange Free State, was comprised of a British element known as the South African Republic, and many smaller African territories controlled by Zulu and other tribes. Although many free states were now free, other empires, now seeing fresh meat ripe for the picking, began entangling themselves with those weak states. I mean, take a look at Mexico for Pete's sake if you don't believe me. After defeating Spain in 1821, gaining their independence, they now faced oppressors like France and Germany, eager to now control the relatively anarchic state. The ruling family in Europe, known as the Habsburgs, held political power throughout the European empires. When the Habsburg Emperor in Austria-Hungary, Franz Joseph, took over parts of France in the 1830s, he gained access to their territories in Mexico, sending his nephew to Mexico in order to rule. Maximilian, he ruled Mexico. Now, well, okay, until the 1860s when Mexicans overthrew the French in 1866, and well, killing Max. One of the influential components of the causes was that, well, by the later 1800s, is that many of the ruling elites of these empires were part of a select few families, mostly the Habsburg. After a series of events in the 1860s led to the Franco-Prussian War, Habsburg rule began to dwindle, especially in Central and Western Europe, where the struggle between German and Russian politics was becoming a boiling point topic. The origins of World War I can first be traced to the dramatic rise of the German Empire after the Franco-Prussian War. Before 1871, Germany had been divided into many small states, but under the leadership of Prussia and Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, Germany unified into a powerful industrial empire. France was defeated decisively, and Germany ceded the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine. To Germans, the victory symbolized national greatness. To the French, however, the loss became a national humiliation. Across France, anger and bitterness spread as many citizens dreamed of revenge and the recovery of the lost territories. This spirit, known as revanchism, poisoned relations between France and Germany for decades to come. Bismarck understood that France would seek allies if given the chance, so he worked carefully to isolate it diplomatically. He created a complex network of alliances designed to preserve peace and protect Germany from fighting a war on two fronts. For a time, his strategy worked, but after Bismarck was dismissed in 1890, Germany's foreign policy changed dramatically. The new German leadership adopted an ambitious imperial strategy called Weltpolitik. Germany sought colonies overseas, a stronger navy, and greater global influence. This aggressive policy alarmed Britain, France, and Russia. Meanwhile, Europe itself was splitting into rival camps. Germany allied with Austria-Hungary and Italy in the Triple Alliance. In response, France strengthened ties with the Russian Empire, forming the Franco-Russian Alliance. Britain, which had long avoided permanent alliances, slowly moved closer to France and Russia as German naval expansion threatened British dominance at sea. By 1907, these relationships had evolved into the Triple Entente. Europe now stood divided into two hostile power blocs. At the time, imperial rivalries intensified distrust among the great powers. European empires competed fiercely for colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Germany challenged French influence in Morocco during the Moroccan crisis of 1905 and 1911, hoping to weaken cooperation between Britain and France. Instead, the crisis strengthened the Entente. Britain increasingly viewed Germany as a threat, especially after Germany began expanding its naval power under Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz. A naval arms race erupted between Germany and Britain, each nation building massive battleships called dreadnoughts. Newspapers fueled public fears, and politicians spoke more openly about the possibility of a war. In southeastern Europe, Another dangerous problem was growing. The Ottoman Empire, which had once dominated the Balkans, was weakening rapidly. As Ottoman power faded, new nationalist movements emerged among the Balkan peoples. Serbia, a small but ambitious Slavic kingdom, dreamed of creating a greater Serbia by uniting all southern Slavs, including those living inside of Austria-Hungary. Russia supported Serbia, obviously, seeing itself as the protector of Slavic people and Orthodox Christians within the Balkans. Austria-Hungary, however, viewed Serbian nationalism as a mortal threat. The empire ruled over many ethnic groups, you see: Croats, Czechs, Slovaks, Serbs, Poles, and others, and Austrian leaders feared that nationalistic movements could tear the empire apart. Tensions worsened during the Bosnian crisis when Austria-Hungary formally annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina, a territory with a large Serbian population. Serbia was outraged, and Russia felt humiliated after being forced to take down diplomatically. Hatred between Austria-Hungary and Serbia deepened. The Balkans became even more unstable after the following Balkan Wars. Serbia emerged stronger and larger, while the Ottoman Empire lost most of its remaining European territory. Austrian officials grew increasingly convinced that Serbia had to be crushed before it inspired rebellion among other Slavic peoples inside the empire. At the same time, Russia recovered from earlier military defeats and became more willing to support Serbia aggressively. Many leaders across Europe began to believe that a great war was approaching. Military planning intensified these fears. Every major power developed enormous armies and detailed mobilization plans. Generals believed that modern wars had to be fought quickly and offensively. Germany relied on the Schlieffen Plan, which aimed to defeat France rapidly before turning east against Russia. France prepared its own offensive strategy, while Russia and Austria-Hungary built massive railroad networks to speed up mobilization. Once mobilization began, stopping it would become nearly impossible. The atmosphere of Europe before 1914 was therefore filled with suspicion, nationalism, and fear. Politicians still spoke of peace, but many military leaders believed that war was unavoidable. The continent resembled a machine under immense pressure, waiting only for a spark. Then came June 28th of 1914. That spark was lit. On that day, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austrian-Hungarian throne, visited Sarajevo in Bosnia. Waiting along the streets were young conspirators linked to the Serbian nationalist secret society known as the Black Hand. One of them was Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb driven by nationalistic dreams. Earlier assassination attempts that day had failed, and it appeared that the Archduke might escape unharmed. But then his driver made a wrong turn and accidentally stopped right in front of Princip. Seizing the opportunity, Gavrilo stepped forward and fired 2 shots, killing Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie. The assassination shocked Europe and the entire world. Austrian leaders saw it not simply as a murder, but as a direct attack on the empire itself. Determined to punish Serbia, Austria-Hungary sought support from Germany. Germany responded with what became known as the blank check, promising unconditional backing even if war with Russia followed. Austria-Hungary then issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia in July of 1914. Although Serbia accepted most demands, it rejected several conditions that threatened its sovereignty. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28th. The alliance system now began to pull Europe into catastrophe. Russia mobilized to support Serbia. Germany, fearing Russian mobilization and trusting that the Schlieffen Plan would work, declared war on Russia and then on France. To reach France quickly, German armies invaded neutral Belgium. Britain, which had guaranteed Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany on August 4th. Within weeks, nearly all of Europe was at war. Crowds in many capitals cheered as soldiers marched off to battle, believing that the war would end quickly. Yet, beneath the excitement lay deep uncertainty and dread. Some leaders already sensed that the disaster ahead. British Foreign Secretary Edward Grey reportedly looked out over London on the eve of war and said, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again within our lifetime." And he was correct. What began as a regional crisis in the Balkans became one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. The war killed millions, destroyed empires, and transformed the modern world forever. Yet, World War I did not begin because of a single assassination alone. It emerged from decades of imperial rivalry, alliance building, militarization, nationalism, political fear, and diplomatic failure. Europe's leaders did not simply stumble blindly into World War I, nor did any one nation act entirely alone. Instead, the war grew out of a system of competing powers and mutual suspicions that made peace increasingly fragile. By 1914, Europe had built a world balanced on alliances, armies, and fear. In Sarajevo, that balance finally collapsed.